Howdy guys, I'm Aden, and welcome back to the Archive channel. I just got finished watching this video, How Many Super Mario Games Are There Now? A sequel to the original, How Many Super Mario Games Are There? I know it sounds like a fairly simple video. Trust me, they are not. They are very in-depth, well worth a watch. I'll leave them linked in the description below. But the sort of thesis is that there's no general consensus to how many mainline Mario games there are, and even the term mainline and what counts as a Mario game is all very subjective, which got me thinking, well, I'm not going to really be able to give you an objective list. However, I can give you my list and see whether or not you agree or disagree with me, which I think could be interesting and make for a fun little archive video. So, which list am I looking through? I'm going to be taking a look at the sort of Nintendo Wiki list of Mario games and kind of go through them, and any of them that I claim to be a mainline Mario game, I'm going to add to this Google Doc right here, where I'm going to list them out and tell you why I think it's a Mario game. And by the end of it, I'll have a numbered list. And let me know by the end of the video if you agree with me and what your list is, because I promise you, there are going to be disagreements. With all that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So, are any of these games right here part of the Mario series, the mainline series? And I think the really, two you could argue for are the original Donkey Kong, which is kind of the first appearance of Mario or Jumpman, and then the original Mario Bros, because technically Super Mario Brothers is a sequel to that game, although they play very differently. Donkey Kong plays very differently to the regular Mario games, right? And for that reason, I'm not going to include them in my own list. I'm kind of looking at the formula established by Super Mario Brothers and the sequels that come after that. So anything before, like the Game & Watch games, the arcade games, the Donkey Kong games, are all valid, just not what I consider mainline Mario. Hopefully that makes sense. So, yeah, no Donkey Kong, no Mario Bros, no Mario Kart Arcade GP, or Luigi's Mansion Arcade. How do you even make an arcade game out of Luigi's Mansion? That's interesting. Anyway, we're skipping past this. We're skipping past the Game & Watch games for a very similar reason. And we're going to move on to the NES/Famicom. We got some Donkey Kong Jr., Mario Bros. Again, right here. Yeah. The first game we're putting on the list is Super Mario Brothers. 1985. I don't know if you've heard of it before, but it's kind of one of those revolutionary-ass games. I don't know. I personally think Wrecking Crew better, but I get it. You know, there's a lot of fans of good old Super Mario Brothers. This is very tiny. Is there a way I could zoom in? Sorry, I'm using Arc, the Arc browser, because I'm getting off of Chrome, and for some reason, okay, I can make it bigger in Google Docs, so that's what we'll do instead. I'll figure out that setting later, so screw them. Super Mario Brothers, all right, that's the first game we're adding. Point being. Okay, what else we got? Mario Duck Hunt? No. Mario Brothers 2. Now this links to Mario USA. However, the official sequel is called Mario Brothers 2, that we referred to it in the US as the Lost Levels. So you end up with two Mario Brothers 2. You have the Lost Levels, which is like more harder levels than Mario 1, that's like super unfun and nobody likes. And then our Mario 2 is actually a game called Doki Doki Panic. Some people are very specific into only counting the Lost Levels. Some people kind of only count the American version. I'm going to count both, personally, because I think both are valid claims to that throne. I'm going to put Mario 2, and then we'll go with the American names, but you know what I mean. Lost Levels is the Japanese Mario 2, and Super Mario Brothers 2 is the American one. So, in fact, I'll just put USA for short. That way you know what I'm talking about. Which one's the real Mario 2? I don't really know. Thankfully, I don't have to answer that question. I simply have to decide what's a mainline Mario game. I'm counting both, okay? All right, anything else? Dr. Mario, NES Open, Yoshi's Cookie, Mario is Missing. Not going to be counting any of the educational games, despite the fact that they include Mario characters, just sort of a different gameplay style. However, I will be including the hit classic Super Mario Brothers 3. This is in the video that I linked down in the description. There are 5 Mario games that people can pretty unanimously agree are Mario games, like with a 95% level of inclusion. And they are Mario Bros, Mario 3, Mario World, Mario 64, and Mario Wonder. Obviously, in my opinion, there are more than 5 Mario games, but we can at least include Super Mario Bros. 3 in confidence, knowing that most people tend to agree that Mario 3 is a mainline entry. Nothing here really makes a ton of sense. There are games we've already talked about, so we're going to move on. Game Boy. All right, we got Tetris, Super Mario Land. I gotta go with Super Mario Land. For a couple of reasons. One, it is very similar in style to the original Super Mario Brothers. But for two, it is the game that introduced Daisy, which is kind of a big deal in terms of the Mario canon. You know, he goes to Sarasaralo, whatever the hell that damn place is called, and he finds Daisy there for the first time. That's the princess he's rescuing. So, yeah, gameplay is very similar, introduces new concepts to the Mario universe. I gotta go with Mario Land 1 to include it. A lot of people haven't played it. It's like 30 minutes long, fairly short. But it was launch title for the Game Boy. Like, it's just as iconic as the rest of these games. I gotta throw it on here. All right, Alleyway, Golf, Dr. Mario, Yoshi's Cookie, Mario Land 2, yeah. Sort of similar reasons. Mario Land 2 even actually looks more like a proper Mario game. But in terms of lore reasons, this is the first game that introduces Wario and then would kind of spin off and do its own little series of Wario Land games that I have not played but look very fun. So yeah, we'll go ahead and include 6 golden coins. Mario's Picross, no, Donkey Kong, Wario Land, Tetris Attack, Game & Watch Gallery, none of these. I think we're covered on that. Game & Watch Gallery, nope, Mario Golf. Super Mario Bros. Deluxe creates an interesting conundrum. Re-released versions of previous Mario games. This was sort of the first one. A Game Boy port of Mario 1 with a couple of added features like a world map and a versus mode and all that type of stuff. Later on, though, there's like Super Mario 3D World for the Switch or Super Luigi U. I'm going to kind of go out of my way and exclude Super Mario Bros. Deluxe, or if you want to justify it in your head as having to include it, just pretend that in Super Mario Bros. I also and Super Mario Deluxe. You know, you can just count it as the same spot if you want. If that helps agree with my list more, I'll take it. But I'm not going to be putting really any re-releases or kind of enhanced versions on my list in particular. All right, Super Nintendo. You got to put in Mario World, right? It's the closest thing we're going to get to an actual Super Mario 4. I mean, that's sort of the tough thing, right? It's like you can only number your sequels until you get past 3, and then people stop numbering their sequels. And I don't count Mario 64 as a numbered sequel. You know, that was just sort of the naming scheme for all Nintendo 64 games. It goes 1, 2, and well, we had 2 2s. So 1, 2, 2 again, 3. What's World? World is 4, in my opinion, is how I'm ordering them here. Unless you want to count Land as 4, and then Land 2 is 5, but Land 2 came after World. Again, thankfully, we don't have to come up with an order here. Chronologically, at least. I am simply putting in games that I think are a part of the Mario series. You see why this is complicated? Are you starting to get an idea of why this is a fruitless endeavor that is only going to lead to arguments? I'm going to include Mario World, point being. That's an easy one. Okay, Super Mario Kart. Now, you can, if you want, go simply based off the definition that any game that has Mario in it is a Mario game. And you know what? Like in the larger Mario franchise, the larger Mario media property, sure. That's not what I'm doing, okay? Otherwise, I'd include Dr. Mario or the RPG games or the sports games or any of that. No. All I am doing is mainline in air quotes, because really what does mainline mean? The mainline Mario games. And so for that reason, I'm not including Mario Kart, Mario Paint, Mario and Wario. Mario's missing again. Mario's Time Machine. Not doing it. We're moving on. Moving on. Get them off the list. Super Mario All-Stars, some people consider to be a mainline entry. After all, it includes the other Mario games in it, so why wouldn't it? It was a compilation. I'm not going to give a compilation its own specific spot. Are you crazy? It is cool, though, that it kind of was the first time we got to play the Lost Levels in America, which to me was sort of the first step in sort of establishing that game in the larger Mario mainline canon. But otherwise, it's a compilation game, so I'm not counting it. Mario RPG, we're not including. Ranker 98, Excitebike. Okay. Ugh. Here's where I'm going to get into some trouble. One of the more contentious games is Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island. And part of the reason it's contentious is that title. It's a sequel to Mario World, so of course it's part of the mainline Mario series. I'm kind of a pedantic motherfucker, though, and I sort of place Yoshi's Island as part of the Yoshi series. Oh, what's the Yoshi series? Well, Yoshi's Island is the start of it, and then you have, like, Yoshi's Story, Yoshi's New Island, Yoshi's Woolly World, Yoshi's Crafted World. This is not just one game, right? The Yoshi series of games have been going on for a while. In fact, in Smash Brothers, right, Yoshi is not given the Mario icon to distinguish him as being part of the other Mario characters. He's given a little egg symbol instead to kind of specify that he is part of the Yoshi series. That being said, you could argue that Yoshi's Island is both the start of the Yoshi series and a continuation of the Mario series. You know, you could technically have them in both. I don't personally, and that's not even getting into all the lore stuff. Like, technically, Mario World 2 is like one of the earliest points in the timeline, which, if the timeline and the narrative stuff is what makes a game canon, then you're gonna start including really weird batshit, insane stuff. Point being, I consider it more of a Yoshi game. You primarily play as Yoshi. The gameplay is different enough for me. I'm not going to count it. However, if you count it, I totally see why. To me, it's too ambiguous, too much of a can of worms, too many ifs and buts that you have to argue around. To me, just because it's called Super Mario World 2 is not valid justification for it. Similarly, Super Mario Land 3 is called Wario Land. And like I was talking about earlier, the Wario Land series of games are their own little thing. There's like 4 of them, right? 4 or 5 of them. So to me, it's Wario Land. It's not part of the Mario series, unless you want to argue both. Yeah, moving on. All right, CDI, we're not including Hotel Mario. As funny as that would be, I would get flamed in any comment section. Virtual Boy, not include Mario Tennis. Mario Clash is kind of like a arcade remake of Mario Bros. So, yeah, I didn't count Mario Bros, so I can't really count Mario Clash. All right, Super Mario 64. I can count that one. I can count that one for sure. It's the first 3D Mario. Believe it or not, there are people out there that make the distinction between 2D Mario and 3D Mario as being two different series, and that only the 2D one is mainline and the 3D one is its own wild sub-series. To me, I don't really see that as being the case. At the time that Super Mario 64 came out, it sort of was like a transition, right? So Mario Land 2 was the last 2D game. Mario 64 was the start of the 3D games. And we only got 3D games for a couple of years there until the first new Super Mario Brothers games, which kind of brought 2D back, and now 2D and 3D kind of live in harmony with each other. And that's how I like to view it, right? Is like 2D Mario is valid, 3D Mario is valid. To me, they are both mainline sort of versions of the same series. And at the time, like, it was, you know, the next mainline Mario game. It's kind of a little bit revisionist to be like, oh, you know, Mario 64 came out, it was the start of the 3D Mario games. No, it's just at the time, this was what Mario was. It's only now, like in hindsight, where things have gotten more complicated. All right, Game Boy Advance. Super Mario Advance. So yeah, these are all kind of Game Boy Advance ports of previous games. And for the Yoshi's Island crowd, see, look, they made a re-release of Yoshi's Island and they called it Super Mario Advance 3. They put it in the same re-release series as Mario World and Mario 3 and Mario 2. So of course, Yoshi's Island is a mainline Mario. I don't agree. I just don't agree. I think if it was a Mario game, you primarily would have to play as Mario. You know, call me old fashioned. Call me old fashioned. This whole re-release series in general is confusing to me because they fucking go out of order. They start with Mario 2, then World, then they hop around to Yoshi's Island and then end on 3. Point being, I don't even think Nintendo really knows how many Mario games there are, you know? So if they don't really know, how can I trust them, right? They keep making up shit where they're like, the Mario Maker is part of the mainline series. Both Nintendo websites say that, right? Some of the websites include Mario Run as part of the Mario series. I disagree with both of those. So I'm not beholden to any official Nintendo list one way or the other. All right, GameCube. Mario Sunshine. Yeah, I can throw that one on there. Kind of the sequel, if you will, to Mario 64, even though it plays completely differently. There are a subset of people out there who believe that while Mario 64 is a mainline Mario game, you know, sort of the 3D interpretation of Mario, that Sunshine and Galaxy are so radically different that they are, in fact, their own separate thing. Similar to the group of people who think like 3D Land and 3D World is a different series than the other Mario 3D games, right? Because they both kind of have a little bit of a formula that separates those games apart. I count all of them. I count all the 3D games other than the re-releases. So Mario Sunshine gets thrown onto the list. All right, Nintendo DS. Super Mario 64 DS. Under my re-release rule, I don't include it. You could argue, though, that Mario 64 DS has enough new content to warrant it being a separate game altogether. For instance, there's 4 playable characters, right? You got Mario, Luigi, Yoshi, and Wario. There's technically new worlds, new levels. There's mini games. There's a versus mode. It controls differently. There's no analog stick on the DS, so it plays a little bit differently. There's new stars, right? It's like 150, I think. They increased the total to. To me, though, it is very much just an alternate version of Mario 64, where the changes are relatively minor for me. And if I'm including, you know, Mario 64 DS, then I'd have to include like Mario Advance 4, Super Mario Bros. 3, because in that game, you could play new e-reader levels that were added onto Mario 3. To me, that's not enough of a distinction to count it as its own separate game. I don't count Super Luigi U as its own separate game. So under my specific set of rules and logic, which again can be wrong, Super Mario 64 DS misses the cut. Might not for you, though. I don't know. Mario Donkey Kong 2. New Super Mario Brothers. Yeah, as much as I don't like that game, I do have to include it. Kind of the new 2D Mario that we have had really ever since Wonder came out. So it had a pretty good run, at least a 10 plus year run of like, this is what 2D Mario was. But New Super Mario Bros. DS, when it came out, you know, before it became a series, was kind of a mix of 2D Mario as well as 3D Mario, as well as introducing its own ideas. Out of all the new Super Mario Bros. Games, this is the one I enjoy the most. I like the fact that there are different bosses at the end of each world. At the time, it was genuinely refreshing and interesting and new and fun. I just think as they kept going along, they kind of got a little bit more and more stale. But this being its own standalone entry in the Mario canon, if you will, the main Mario series, I think it does a justifiable job at being a worthwhile inclusion. So yeah, we're gonna throw it on here. Wii Super Paper Mario. Nope. Mario Party 8, Mario Strikers, Mario and Sonic, Mario Galaxy. Gotta include Mario Galaxy. I mean, why wouldn't you? Believe it or not, there are people who don't include the Mario Galaxy games because they control differently. You know, they don't control like a normal Mario game. So technically, you know, it's a different thing. They're weird. I'm sorry. I'm not tolerating no weird people in the chat. Brawl, Dr. Mario. You know how many damn Dr. Mario games there are? Like in my Smash Brothers video, I made a distinction that like I added on 2 series, Luigi's Mansion and Dr. Mario. And Luigi's Mansion, like a lot of people are like, yeah, of course, Luigi's Mansion's its own series. People were like, Dr. Mario, its own series? I thought that was just one NES. No, they have made damn near a Dr. Mario for practically every console. And they're not like very different games, you know? There's like minor new things each time, but there's like 7 Dr. Mario games out there, and they keep making them. So it's not like a dormant series either. To where I felt like I had to include it in that Smash Brothers video that I made a while back. Here's 2: New Super Mario Brothers Wii and Mario Galaxy 2. We're putting them on there. New Super Mario Bros. Wii. I don't know. I think the claim to fame with Mario Wii is just like, look, 4 players, and it's not like that big of a change in gameplay. Like, yeah, it's a little bit more chaotic, but it's not like a feature that shows up in all the other Mario games, right? Like in the 2D ones they kind of do, but in 3D, like, it's not even that big of a thing. And I've always just thought these games are more fun played by yourself anyway, or with like one other person. With 4 people, it's just kind of chaotic and not very fun in my opinion. So, all right, now we're in the 2010s now. We're pretty close to wrapping this bad boy up. All right, Super Mario 3D Land. I'm gonna include both. Some people are like, the land and the world games are different. They're like a hybrid of the 2D and 3D. If I'm already including the 2D and 3D, you know, am I not gonna include the hybrid ones? Even though, to me, they play pretty similar to most other 3D Mario games. I don't know. New Super Mario Brothers 2. Throw that one on there. I have still never played this. Apparently, Ethan really liked it. He liked the little coin gimmick or whatever. Puzzle Dragons, you gotta include. See, it's the Mario edition, so that must make it on the list. It is not. Okay. The Mario Maker games, right? Technically, they're new content in the gameplay style of the previous 2D games. And in some of the Mario Maker games, in particular Mario Maker 2 on Switch, Nintendo even designed their own levels. So if you treat the newly designed Nintendo levels and pretend that it's its own new Mario game, then yeah, of course, throw all the Mario Makers on there. For me, it's kind of like throwing Adobe Premiere in like a video games list, or Photoshop in a games list. It's like, yes, there is fun in creation, in making things, but I don't think many people would go out of their way and be like, yeah, that's a video game, right? Mario Maker, right, like there's controls, you can play them, all that type of stuff. To me, I kind of count it in the realm of like fan creations, mods. I picture it more as creative software, having fun, making levels and stuff, but not necessarily the same appeal as the regular Mario games are, if that makes any sense. I know I'm kind of sound like I'm twisting and contorting certain games to fit in my rules, but trust me, if you try to make a list, you're going to be doing the exact same shit. This is why this whole thing's impossible. For me, I consider the Mario Maker games more in their own realm of like creative software than I do mainline Mario games. Nothing else though in 3DS. All right, Wii U, New Super Mario Bros. U. We can throw that one on there. Did not need to type that. New Super Mario. This is at the point, right, where this New Super Mario Brothers series like kind of officially hit rock bottom for me. Like, I've played this multiple times and do not feel a damn thing. It is the most generic Mario experience you can possibly have. Unlike 3D World, which is fun and interesting, and also a Mario game. Wow. Super Mario 3D World 2013. It'd be weird if I included Super Mario 3D Land and then not include 3D World. So that's my justification. New Super Luigi U, some people include this as a mainline game. I kind of consider it more like an expansion or a DLC or a re-release or whatever other term you want to classify it under. I know technically they released this as its own standalone game, and in a lot of videos reviewing these games, you know, they'll do separate videos. They'll do one on New Super Mario Bros. U and then another one on Luigi U, because yeah, the levels are different. It introduces Nabbit, right, which is pretty important to the Mario lore nowadays, right? You see Nabbit in a lot of the party games and sports games and stuff. But to me, it's just kind of like, I don't know, it still is very much Mario U with so minor of actual meaningful changes that I have a hard time classifying it as its own mainline game. All right. Let's see. Mobile, Mario Run, Dr. Mario World, Mario Kart Tour. I'm not including them. You know, I'm not going to call them not video games because they are very much video games. Am I counting them as mainline video games? No. In the same way, like, the Sonic mobile games aren't mainline Sonic games, and the weird Pokemon Cafe remix isn't mainline Pokemon games. Like, the gameplay is different enough in the way that it's an auto runner that, to me, kind of classifies it as being outside mainline Mario. So there you go. Okay, finally, Nintendo Switch, the last damn console we're talking about. We'll go ahead and include Super Mario Odyssey, because why the hell not? Super Mario Odyssey, great video game. You should play it. Perhaps my favorite Switch game. No Mario Maker 2, no Smash Ultimate, no Super Mario Party. However, we can include so far, I've only played a little bit of it, but the very good Super Mario Brothers Wonder. Super Mario Bros. Wonder 2023. Okay. And I believe that officially wraps up the list. Right here. How many we got? 19. Which is, I'm not going to say the consensus opinion. However, at least 5% of the people who took the surveys in the previous videos have a list like this. That number is even more if you include this list, but some of the fringe cases, like Yoshi's Island, like Mario Land 3, like Super Mario Run, or the Game & Watch games, or Donkey Kong, right? Like, there's 1,000 different permutations that you could spawn outside of this list that you can add. You can even throw in Super Mario 64 DS, right? Those contentious games kind of muddy the waters a little bit. However, for the most part, people are starting with this list and adding to it. There are a few crazy people that take away games from this list for one reason or another that I do not agree with. However, I have yet to find a game that I personally believe I can add on to it. Yoshi's Island is maybe the closest you can get to tempting me over to that side, but even then, I'm very hard set in the fact that I believe that to be a Yoshi game. So yeah, those are my 19. Let me know. You agree? Do you disagree with me? This video is 36 minutes long? Okay, I'm ending this. Bye-bye.